Hi guys, it's kind of late in the day, and you might be able to hear the birds singing because they're all saying goodnight. And I think that our sparrow family has actually hatched at the top of my writing studio, which is really cool. So tonight I'm going to show you how we plant potatoes, and I kind of feel like I should go into some really long history about potato famines and the beauty of potatoes and the nutrient value of potatoes. But I just want to sort of summarize by saying that one of the things that I really enjoy about growing this particular kind of starchy amendment to our food system here on the property is that at any given day when I have things that are growing, I can grab all kinds of herbs, green leafies, root veggies, and potatoes. And with that kind of starchy amendment to the meal, I can make like something really cool, especially when I've got eggs, right? So I've got the protein, I've got the starch, and I have the veggies. So for me, potatoes are a really kind of low cost, high yield, really easy to grow addition to our family's food, because as I've mentioned in the years past, before the pandemic, we were really influenced by Barbara Kingsolver's Animal Vegetable Miracle, and I wanted to learn how to live off of our land all the time. So for us, this crop is really useful. It's by no means everything, but what I wanted to show you, we ended up really working with a straw method, and the reason for that is that it's incredibly quick, it's really, really easy. It creates, just because it's so light and airy, it has a tendency to work really, really well with potatoes, which are really prone to over moisture from the ground and therefore rot. So when you bring in an amendment like straw, what you're doing is creating a very airy space for the potato to work its magic. In my last video, I explained that when you cut up and cure potatoes, what you're basically doing is alerting them to grow. And the reason for that is that if you take any given potato, I'm going to pretend that this was a joined potato. On that single potato, there's usually one or two main starts, and those kind of rule the roost. And the rest of the little eyes of the potato don't activate unless you cut it up, right? Once you cut the potato up, this little eye that has been sort of been the subservient eye of the potato kind of decides to sing its song, and it will grow if you give it a chance. So I'm going to just show you. The cured potatoes, I feel like they look dark and kind of a little bit scary, but they're healthy. I have done a lot of research on this and we've had luck in the past. So I just want you to know that when you cure your potatoes for a couple days, they end up looking dark. That's what happens to potatoes when they're not submerged in water. But they're fine. There's no mold. That's dry. There's a nice seal or skin after we cut it. And these little roots are actually still doing just fine. The other thing I really want to help you understand, because this was kind of a concept for me, this isn't the potato that you're going to grow. I know that's obvious, but for some reason when you cut up a potato, it feels a little bit weird. This is the potato that you're going to grow. This is a whole new life, right? So what's going to happen over the next few months is that this potato is going to form roots that are going to go down into the ground and sprouts that are going to go up above the earth. The sprouts that go up above the earth are going to form green leafy parts. Those green leafy parts are going to be responsible for the photosynthesis process that's going to feed this plant. The roots are going to go deep into the earth and they're going to absorb all of the nutrients of the soil, and those are going to be responsible for feeding nutrients into your potatoes. This little section of potato is just the starch. It's just the feeding mechanism for all of the potatoes that you are going to grow. Out of every potato, you are going to get about 5 to 10 new potatoes. you're going to get tubers, those are called tubers, that are going to form on the root and on the stem. So one of the key things that we will talk about a little bit over in the next few tutorials is that the tubers that form on the leafy part of the stem will only form if you continue to sort of fill in around them. Just like tomatoes, which we'll go into later, potatoes are part of the nightshade family, and they have a really unique ability to grow suckers or tubers, suckers for tomatoes, tubers for potatoes, on their stems. You're going to probably need to hill in around your potato about 4 to 6 times throughout its growing season, and we'll talk about that more later. So when I plant this here and it starts to grow, it will form green leafy and stem that will come above the straw, right? And what I will do is continue to form a hill around it. And this is important. It does not have to be high intensity work at all. So I think I've kind of covered the fundamentals of potato growth, how it works, why you need to hill around a potato, why cutting it is useful. And now let's just look at how to grow them, right? So traditionally what you would do in ground, and it's the same for straw, is you would do a little bit of a furrow, right? The reason you do a furrow is because you're going to hill up, right? So if you have a furrow in place and then you hill up around it, you don't have to just keep hilling and hilling and hilling, creating a really big dense hill. Instead, what you're going to do is eventually come about even, probably at the end of the growing season, we will have hilled up to about here, if I was to guess, right? The other thing about this particular method is you're going to have soil. We have just about this much soil. Underneath all of this is actually just last year's growth. It involves sticks, some dirt, a bunch of chicken coop refuse from last year. That's way down there. We don't keep that up close because you don't want to like dig around in fresh chicken poop. That needs to be a few feet down. And we have some fresh dirt. It's not high nitrogen dirt because the potato leaves love nitrogen, but the tubers will actually end up sort of being too small. So if you have a high nitrogen content soil, you have really beautiful leafy parts to your potatoes, but kind of small tubers. So you don't want to do that. So what you do here is you create a furrow, right? And I'm just going to do like a couple little short ones. These will actually extend out. I'm just going to show you what it looks like for the purpose of this video, right? That I'm going to pick as my russets. I'm going to organize these by type. One of the things in terms of planting potatoes is you want each potato part to be about 12 inches apart, and each row. So potato parts are within the furrow. Rows refer to the actual furrows themselves, right? So each row or furrow should be about 24 to 36 inches or 2 to 3 feet, right? So I'm going to show you, here's a potato part, and here is a crescent fingerling. I want to do red potatoes here, so I'm going to grab a red potato. I talked about this in my tutorial, but when you have a potato that is around the size or less than the size of a hen's egg, you don't need to cut it up. So I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to put all of my red potatoes in so that you can see what that looks like. If you're feeling a little intimidated about growing these for some reason, I would suggest that what you do is you go to your garden store, call into your garden store during this time, ask for a delivery of seedling potatoes that are around this size. You won't have to cut them up, you won't have to cure them. All you have to do is toss them into a pile of straw and dirt and water it and see how it goes. So that would be my advice if you're a new potato grower, is don't deal with all the cutting and curing. At the same time, you shouldn't be intimidated by it. It's really simple, but I totally get if you are. So here's your red potatoes, right? I'm gonna put that in my furrow. If you are working with cut potato varieties, I'm going to head back over to that furrow. What you really generally want to do is have the cut part down. I'm going to get a good example of that. You want to put the cut part down, and the start up, right? So as you kind of fill in, focus on that aspect of it. Makes it really simple. So here's my cut part, here's my starts. Okay, and I am going to, after I'm done with this, I'm gonna do every 2 feet because I don't really want to use every 3 feet. That feels like a waste of space for what I'm trying to do. Every 2 feet I will do a furrow or a row. I will put in about every 12 inches, these are a bit close, my potatoes. I will organize them by type. You don't have to do that. If you don't care whether you get a fingerling or a red or a russet or a white, then you can just kind of like mix them all in. But I'm going to organize them by type. I'm going to label them, and then I will cover them with straw, like that. After that, I'm going to do a light dusting of soil, which will look like this, right? Light dusting of soil. And I will water it in. I will water it every couple days. I don't want it to get dry. And as soon as I start to see the starts form, I will watch that carefully, and it will start to hill or fill in to get that upper part of the potato plant, the stem and leaf, to have mass around it so that that stem can actually make tubers or potatoes grow on it. So as I cover my potatoes and fill in the furrows that I formed, I want to explain one more key point about growing potatoes, and you will totally be able to understand this just based on any time that you have left your potatoes in a bag or in a drawer. They respond to the dark. When they are fully shaded from the sun and in the dark, that's how they grow. So one of the reasons that we want to hill in over our potatoes and potato stems as they grow is because only the leaves are really working hard with the sun to deliver energy to the plant. So don't forget to do that part of it, right? It's really simple. You can kind of set up a little bit of a calendar reminder either on your phone or your desktop calendar or just like a little pocket calendar or something like that. Or obviously if you're present and able to look at your garden, you'll kind of know, and we'll talk about it more over the coming months. I'm not going to just let this go. I'll show you like when mine need to be furrowed in or filled in. But just remember that one point, it grows in the dark. So that's why we do this, and that's why covering them completely is the key. And why straw? Because it doesn't sort of clod together. It doesn't mud together. It creates air and airflow rather than a moldy environment. It's why it tends to be a really successful way to grow these. And when I go to harvest, what's going to be super cool is that I will have tubers growing up and tubers growing down from what I planted. So if you have any questions about that at all, it can be a little bit mysterious. I've had people write in and say, should I really cure these potatoes? Should I cut them? Some people just throw them in when they're uncured. They just test it out. One of the sort of little tips I would offer is if you have the space and you're a little bit unsure about how to do it, then and maybe you have the resources, then maybe plant extra and you'll learn as you go. It's a little more frustrating if you have a small amount of space and a sort of a limited number of resources and your potatoes don't make it. So that's sort of an additional sort of point, is if you could do maybe one more vertical row of potatoes just to see how it goes, then you give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. But if you have any questions at all, just totally message me. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to hear from you at any time. And get those potatoes planted. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye.